to the Do It All Dad Year podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kornbluth, and this is episode 22, Working for Pauly Shore and Weaseling Out of Mother's Day. As of right now, and this is not a joke, I'm actually being considered for a writer's assistant job with Pauly Shore. So you know the economy is booming again. I saw a recent interview with Pauly Shore on Joe Rogan, and he seemed very subdued. He said that I miss being a movie star. In fact, the Weasel insisted that he was Adam Sandler before Adam Sandler. And I'm thinking, you were never Adam Sandler, Weasel. There's only one golden Jew, and that's Adam Sandler. You better recognize. I'm very happy, Weasel, that you had an amazing movie run. I know you could have made some better choices. From where I stand, I could write your next star vehicle, but the ball's in your court. So we're going to do some more jokes, and we're going to talk about the idea of performing with you this summer. That would be nice. It'd be in California. Most likely, I would only be able to afford a shitbox in North Hollywood. Don't know how thrilled I am about that. I do have vivid memories of going to bartending school out there and having no money, scrounging for money in my beat-up Honda Accord. And at one point, having to make like a phone call, and I remember like asking for like a credit card from the owners of the bartending school that I went to. They had a picture of like Bruce Willis on the wall, and they looked at me as if I was completely insane. Yeah, as if they had 10 times worse credit than me, as if they were the degenerate Jew incarnate, not myself. That was something else. My bartending teacher, huge tits. They were beautiful, pillowy lobes of perfection. Pretty sure she was banging the bartender who was a New Yorker who I loved, that taught the course. Pretty sure he was a bartender at Studio 54 back in the day. That was one of his claims to fame. And he also told me a story about serving Kathy Bates one time. And she was down and out, and this before she got her role for Misery, which obviously was a career changer. And it's been pretty peachy for Kathy ever since. And before she did the movie about Schmidt, and she showcased her unapologetic mountain of muff to good old Jack Nicholson. So, but back to Adam Sandler for a second. So it turns out the Pauly Shore, he refers to Adam Sandler as a dear friend, which I think is pretty awesome. Both members of the tribe. And also, people, for you millennial Mouseketeers out there, and I mean that in the most affectionate sense, Adam Sandler actually got to start on Remote Control, which was to start where Colin Quinn had a co-hosting position. And he was slightly easier to understand back then, but not necessarily. But Colin's always been funny. It's just, for me, from where I stand, he's got that typical dry, smart, sardonic New York personality, but it's not really like transformative. He's never carrying a film. But I think it's cool that Sandler stays loyal and hooks up his friends in all of his films, and Colin Quinn being one of them. And I remember reading in David Spade's book that after they would perform sets all throughout New York, specifically after the comic strike. No, actually, this is in L.A., that he would go to a diner, David Spade, with Adam Sandler and Colin Quinn, and just write jokes and sample jokes on each other. So my point being here is that these people just don't become stars because, they're so genetically blessed. They really work at the joke writing, and they believe in themselves when a lot of people don't, because, especially back then, comedy, it wasn't as like mainstream. And obviously, I don't think the quality of the comedy today, compares to back then. And Michael Savage, the esteemed Michael Savage, will say that all comedy today is just, pure shock humor, which I think is very insulting. He basically reminds me of everyone back in the day that just relegated Dice to being a filthy, shticky, shocky hack, but, that fails to capture the awesomeness and inventiveness and sheer force of personality of the Dice Man. and he ruled the 90s. He was the ultimate hair metal comedian. So it was him, it was Howard, Dennis Leary. Those guys have personality. Those guys really connected with me. Although I found out through my producer on VH1 Classic that once I was waiting for a cab. No, I'm sorry. He was getting out of a cab, and he was a musician. He was like doing open mics back then before he got like a producer job at VH1. And he was taking forever to get his stuff out. And Dennis Leary was with his wife, and he's like completely exasperated, like huffing and puffing. And, like the Asshole song might have been like, blaring in the background, which I think is very comical. And as much as I love Rescue Me and Dennis Leary, he did blatantly jack that Bill Hicks joke about the guy who apparently was in really great shape, who died of a heart attack while promoting the benefits of smoking. Because he has like this bit where he says, how many people in the audience smoke? And then you hear this belabored cheer. And he goes, this is Bill Hicks, how many people in the audience don't smoke cigarettes? And then everyone gets like really excited. And then Bill Hicks makes a joke about, you gotta love it how all of those non-smokers can, generate such larger than life energy at will, or something like that. I'm totally butchering it. But anyway, Dennis Leary has a similar bit. And apparently he was close with Bill. And he definitely blatantly like lifted like the heart and soul of that bit. But I would say that Dennis Leary has made up for it for Rescue Me. So all is forgiven in my eyes. A Russian robot is screening 1,500 candidates a day. What impact will it have on the future of recruitment? The VP of Software Engineering still yelling, where are my resumes, Melania? Keith Ellison is tired of the anti-Semitic smear lumpage that never comes off under his borders are bullshit t-shirt due to his prolonged nearness to Farrakhan over the years. Keith Ellison acts like they never crossed swords in a sword dance before. This is a father-son boob talk at the deli. Dad picks up a lump ball of mozzarella. Unemployed comedian / father 3. That's me. Remember when I said natural tits are better than the ones harder than bricks? Well, this is what I mean. Feel the mozz up a bit. True story. I embellish a little bit for comedic purposes. So I'm playing ball. Finally getting nice weather. Back here in the East Coast again. There's a little kid. I played a game of 3-on-3 when my kids were playing at the playground. And I took jump shots earlier that day, really focusing on jumping forward with my jump shot and actually shooting far above my big noggin, and also trying to extend my shooting arm as straight as if I'm like Lady Liberty. I'm literally trying to like high five the top of the rim. And I was on fire. And this little kid says, so I'm not just hitting jump shots. I'm doing rebounds. I'm passing. I'm not acting hurried. I'm very centered. Obviously, it's not like I was playing against a bunch of like black guys who are twice my size, but I was still composed. And there is pressure to dominate when you're playing a bunch of 15-year-olds. This one guy was guarding me. He was very athletic. I was never that athletic at his age. He was 16, but I totally dominated him. I just played him left. But we had this conversation where the little kid, after I had won back-to-back games for my team, I said, I gotta go. Got to the kids. They all want to like introduce themselves, shake my hands. It was a very touching moment. But prior to that, this little kid, I don't know, probably 10 max, he says, did you play ball when you were younger? And I said, I'm a late bloomer, kid. Not losing my virginity in high school didn't do me any favors. I love the difference in reporting between the New York Post and the New York Times. New York Times is, Trump abandons the Iran deal. New York Post, Trump pulls out all over Stormy Daniels' chest for all time's sake. Memo to James Comey. 50% off? Never felt like such a bad deal. Now Iran claims to have names of Western officials who took bribes to jam the nuke deal down Merkel's throat. General Kelly would be kicked out of the Marines today for such racist, bigoted remarks. You'd think General Kelly accused Carlos Mencia of stealing the English language out of American comedians' mouths for a living. According to Bloomberg, ex-mayor Bloomberg, almighty Bloomberg, according to him, Americans are facing an epidemic of dishonesty. You could have run against Trump, Bloomberg, and you blew it! Bernie Sanders gets screwed by the DNC. So much for 2017 being the year for atheist Jews. Obama must get distraught seeing LeBron sulk in his Arabian best goat herder beard after the Celtics destroy the chosen one's Cavs. Obama tears through his secret Almond Joy stash after the crushing loss, hidden behind a box of duct tape from Costco. W is now talking about the dangers of isolation after Trump kills the Iran deal. Dangers of isolation. Whatever you say, Van Gogh, your dad actually did business with the Nazi Party. Trump should call W low-class Bush moving forward. Sadiq Khan, the great mayor of London. The great mayor of London is falling for real. Sadiq Khan thinks all junk food advertising should be taken off bus stops because he has some friends who are investors in a halal energy drink company who could blow up with some added regulation in their favor. So this is the working for Pauly Shore and Weaseling out of Mother's Day episode. So let's talk about Mother's Day for a second. Is anti-mom sentiment classified as shadow banned hate speech on Twitter on Mother's Day? If 330 million users on Twitter boast such amazing mothers, then why are we all obsessed with seeking love from strangers on Twitter? I think it's a legitimate question. Memo to Hillary Hammer Time Cankles. What happened? You didn't sell American moms on why baby boomer mom knows best. If there's one person I'm not wishing a happy Mother's Day, it's to you. Not that you're happy at all or will be throughout the remainder of your pathetic, awful life. True love is your wife busting your mom's balls on your behalf on Mother's Day through sending her a picture of her 3 grandchildren in a child's museum in Norway, happy to take a spring break away from hiking in the desert in Arizona. Weaseling out of Mother's Day excuses. I got my wife pregnant again by mistake, so I was dealing with that at the time, Mom. I refuse to be bullied by Twitter into calling you. I'm a new age Mr. Mom / stay-at-home father of 3, so let's call it a wash then. Wife says, you can't be mad at me on Mother's Day. I reply, then sound less annoying than my mother did 2 seconds ago. So I'm at Staples getting my wife a card. I always write my own notes with inside. I think it's pretty hacky to rely on the sincere thoughts or poetic leanings of others. I mean, after all, if you're in love with someone and someone loves you, you figure they love you for you, not for some, stranger's ideas on love. I always tell my kids, you want to develop material that has a universal quality to it. For example, this podcast, Wheezing out of Mother's Day. I know I'm not the only one that has a less than stellar relationship with their mother. And that as a result, and those relationships tend to get more icy when you have grandchildren and you feel completely emotionally bent all together, but you don't even care about yourself anymore. You care more about your kids. But you care about the fact that like they act as if they're so high and mighty and that they've committed no wrongdoing. So that's a little annoying. But they say, what's weaseling? It's evading responsibility. So everyone could definitely relate to the idea of wanting to avoid that phone call. But, so I was talking about universal qualities. That's what I was talking about. Great lesson to impart to your kids for the Doodle Daddy podcast. So I'm at Staples getting a card. And I had all these batches of singles with me that I wanted to get rid of. They're very disheveled looking. And so I hand over to the cashier at Staples this disheveled like wad of singles. And I say, Stormy Daniels' tips have seen better days. Hope that was worth the wait. So we come home. After that, went to Target. My kids are really getting into wiffle ball right now, which is very exciting. Both my children, actually. I got 3. But my 4-year-old son, Arthur, and my daughter, Matilda. She was so funny. As usual, me quoting my daughter is going to completely overshadow any pre-written jokes or ad-libs on my behalf. But so I'm really struggling. I'm not pitching that well underhand. It's not very natural to me. And it's still no excuse. And then my daughter goes, Daddy, understand that she's gripping one of those old school skinny like yellow wiffle bats. And I'm pitching the wiffle ball. She goes, Daddy, aim for the yellow bat. So my daughter has like an amazing ability to be like direct and nice and stern, yet with like an undercurrent of like bitchiness. But it's not, you don't really like feel it's like bitchiness. It's more a matter of like, Daddy, you're struggling, so let me help you right now. And I'm gonna do this without completely talking down to you altogether. But I'm also gonna convey some like disgust with your struggling with throwing me a decent underhand lob of a wiffle ball to knock out of the park already. So let's pick up the pace and focus, Daddy. Focus. So, she's got an amazing swing. And then once I made that correction due to my daughter's guidance, meanwhile, I understand I'm 42, she's 7, and all of a sudden she starts connecting all over the place. She's spraying doubles and triples all over the yard. And then then my daughter says, you did a really good job following my advice, Dada. Yeah. So she's too much. She's something else. Love more every day. So the day of Mother's Day, so we went to Target to get some more wiffle balls because she's also been like hitting me over the fence and like we've lost some balls. So anyway, I thought, it would be a great idea to come home because my wife works at nights, bring home vanilla latte. Okay? First thing she gets. It's Mother's Day. That'd be a nice touch. So anyway, already got her the nice Kate Spade robe, which is very sexy on her, and it's fitting her beautiful. So thank you, God, for delivering on that front, because that could always be a walking booby trap waiting to happen. So, but there was no rollage, spillage, and she looks great in it. So God bless my wife. She's looking very glowy these days. She gives credit to her bronzer, but I think it's because she's a very happy mom that's been blessed with 3 beautiful children, thanks to the Lord above, and for her good fortune to fall in love with me and take advantage of my auspicious genery. So, come back from Staples, and my wife's up for a whopping 5 minutes, and she says, I'm starving. And then I say, most supermodels wouldn't bitch hours after their vanilla latte, topped with whipped cream, no less. Yeah. I don't think Team Obama is done crying over their loss of Muslim Brotherhood cred yet. At least the New York Times op-ed section is a shoulder to cry on. And Facebook is the surrogate-loving dad for Obama, who hasn't bailed on him yet. Steph Curry picks and pops way quicker than MJ ever did. Ben and Jerry should make a hazelnut shortcake popsicle in his honor. Durant has no reason to be a defensive interviewing recipient anymore. He won the ring for Golden State last year. So light it up already. You want to be Maz Def? Michael Savage is beyond infuriating. I love his insistence on purporting his evolved theory on how everyone happy for Israel yesterday was somehow a damaged person inside, whose sensitivity leanings towards peace aren't on his level. I realize most of my affection for the esteemed Dr. Savage stems from him feeling like my surrogate Jewish dad from the Bronx, with more impassioned, patriotic, erudite leanings. When I attack his insufferable arrogance, I'm attacking my dad, really. Still, leave it to Michael Savage, the esteemed Dr. Michael Savage, buzzkill incarnate, to dump all over a glorious day for American and Israeli Jews, despite the bloodshed, obviously. Michael Savage reminds me of all those critics of DICE, attributing all his success to over-reliance on filthy, shocking, so-called humor. And I love how Michael Savage thinks he's even funnier than Ricky Gervais. Now that's hilarious. Hey, Michael Savage, according to you, comedy is dead today? It's completely reliant on shock humor. It's not evolved. It doesn't exude the wittiness that you're so fond of, that you represent and personify so well! Well, how about this one? Try this one on for size. Waiting for Hamas to stop using hospitals as shields against Israeli retaliation is like waiting for Linda Sarsour to disrobe at a foam party in Cancun with more suburban Jews than Jersey Guidos in attendance. Now, that is what you call an A-plus gem. Comedy's alive and well. Below me, long time, Dr. Savage. Long time. Louis C.K. possesses more creativity in his pinky you have in your entire body, for the record. And I don't care that he jerks off in his bathrooms or in his hotel rooms that he paid for to support, and he's supporting a family, and he's a divorced dad. Screw you. He gave the woman a heads up. I never heard of these women opening for him before. I mean, I'm not saying that would be my move. Yeah, but yeah. Again, I said it before. I mean, it seems a little knee-jerk reactionary to suddenly take down all of his blood, sweat, and tears in the form of his comedy specials on Netflix and HBO. They're literally taken down. All of them. Basically the next day. So I figure it's just a matter of time before they take down the Rocky statue in Philly. Considering the fact that the Rocky statue does promote white supremacy. Because if you remember, Balboa does whip the shit out of Clubber Lang in Rocky 3. So, Turkish president, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to say it, but he decided to withdraw Turkey's ambassadors from the U.S. and Israel. Now, I hate to quote Hillary Hammertime Cankles, but what difference does it make? So now any dumb American who tries to smuggle hash out of Turkey is really screwed. So my wife, she works as a nurse at that's close by. I don't think I'm allowed to name the hospital. She works nights, so she works in labor and delivery, but she also works with blue-face newborns. She's literally responsible for checking for vital signs, which is very scary, and it makes me feel like a self-absorbed narcissist because all I ever check for is for retweets. And so now she's actually leading a mommy group at the hospital. They meet once a week, and they talk about issues concerning new mommies. So I'm doing my best to show an interest in our group, and I said, hey, babe, so what do you talk about in your mommy group today? And she says, we talked about the guilt of returning to work. And I said, but modern women can have it all, baby. Plus, don't act like a mommy who works for JP Morgan Chase doesn't plan past lunch. Obama promised to recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital in a mock improvisational White House exercise with Ben Rhodes to become less stiff on Kimmel. It's another gem, Savage. Hope you're keeping notes. Hamas sympathizers are like Nazi apologists, united in their hatred of any successful Jewish legacy of any kind. When moms see dads at the park, they automatically think you're an insincere loser who appears happy to play with his kids and leave his smartphone in the car. That's what I think. So I'm hanging out with my daughter and my son, Arthur. And my daughter says, out of the blue, I'm never getting married. I'm just going to live with my friends. And then her 4-year-old brother says, then I'm dating your girlfriend to live with you. How sweet is that? And then 2 seconds later, I said, Matilda, you are banned from all moving out talk for the next 5 years, at least. So why do I end on that last joke for this episode? Working for Pauly Shore and weaseling out of Mother's Day. Because in essence, I could definitely pose the philosophical question by saying, let's assume Pauly Shore loves my jokes. He loved my podcast in honor of his late great mother, the ultimate comedic den mother, the late Mitzi Shore. Let's say he's in a very lonely, dark place right now. He thinks I could cheer him up. I'd be good company. I can help him write some jokes, which I most certainly can, obviously. This is minimum wage, but it's California minimum wage. So, for all I know, these days, I could open up my own fucking grow house. But the point being is, by taking that job, if he were to offer it to me, I mean, I haven't even had interview yet for it, but let's say, assuming he does, would I be weaseling out of the responsibility of being a dad on the home front where my kids need me most? Or do my kids need me to become a success and make the contacts that I need to in order to financially provide for them? Now, right now, I provide love, I provide affection, education, guidance. I'm doing a lot of great molding, but, I'm not bringing home the bacon. Now, this job, if I get it, a lot of people say, oh, that's great. Yeah, what father of 3 wouldn't want to ditch his 3 kids behind, go out to California, hang out with Pauly Shore and Vince Neil and his hair metal crew of old, and go to the Comedy Store and rub elbows with comedians that I admire. I can meet the great Adam Sandler, chill in Malibu. I mean, it all sounds great and everything, especially being able to work in my craft and actually get freaking steady stage time. That all sounds wonderful. However, if I'm getting so upset about my daughter, if I'm already giving her the banning talk, on moving out talk, am I really emotionally prepared to jet out to California to hang out with Pauly Shore all summer? I think so. But I'm definitely nervous. I mean, can we get help here on the home front? Can the grandparents rise up to the occasion? And because none of them are working. One's retired and one's been retired for ever because she worked as a hairdresser for a couple of years. And then that was that, which is fine, obviously. But they now have my in-laws now adopted a runtish, bony, nibbly, very annoying, excessively ugly dog. So that affects things. Obviously, it makes my mother less mobile, less available, beyond infuriating, whatever. So the thing is, I always read about these people, and I mentioned before in the podcast, where I read a lot of comedic and musical autobiographies, and they always say, like Charlie Daniels, for instance, he said he only had one child, one son, and he claims, this is Mr. Honesty, Jesus, the only way to heaven, which is fine if you're going to be that stringent in terms of, believing in ascension to heaven and accepting him as your Lord and Savior. That's fine. Jesus Christ, I love you, the original Super Joe. But my point being is, Charlie Daniels says, well, I told my wife and my son, I said, if you want me to stay home, I will. But they never told me to. So I left them behind 300 days a year. And I think it's bullshit. But Bruce Springsteen has a comment about it in the Elvis documentary, saying that, that wasn't Elvis at home. He was the guy on stage. That's who he needed to be. That was his destiny. That's what drove him. So that's the crossroads that I'm at. But now I'm beginning to think, you know what? Do I really need Pauly Shore to validate my like comedic worth in this world? Obviously not. But I am drawn to the opportunity to actually be of service to the greater good. And I think Paulie's in a hurt place right now. And I know he's got friends, obviously. He's got lots of friends. And I'm sure that he could find a new pretty lady to meet every night. But a new comedic brother in arms that could have a vested interest in really helping take his career to like a new plateau and giving it a really excellent, uh, second act to completely inspire future comedians. That would be sweet. So my point here, folks, is every morning I take my daughter out. We wait for the bus. We talk about. I give her these like life lessons. Like this morning, we're talking about. She was saying how she's already learning in school, and the question is, do I really want to like uproot my kids when she's getting such an amazing education here in North Salem, where the teacher says, "Well, today we learned to identify a fact and then like state that in a sentence, but without like replicating it verbatim." And I said, because or else that's plagiarism. And my dad was like, yeah. I'm like, that's crazy. So am I really in such a rush to uproot my daughter? I mean, she's making friends, but she's always going to make friends. I know ultimately my children want me to be successful, and that's the most important thing to them. But at the same time, my password is Samuel Wins, and that's the name of my most recent newborn. And he's such a happy kid. And a large part of that is because of all this time I've been able to spend with him. I've been able to, I mean, he could already throw like a tight spiral. It's amazing. I mean, he's only one. And he already tries to like imitate like push-ups of mine. So it's really true, do it all dads, aspirational do it all dads, uh, that your kids mirror what you do. So, I would say that the best thing about becoming a dad is the opportunity to replace bad habits with good habits so you can inspire your children so make sure that they have to endure less suffering and struggle than you did, and they can become new and improved versions of you. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'd like to keep that up. And that's why I throw this out there for all of you founders out there, entrepreneurs, the startups. I do want to have conversations with you because on this podcast, and I'm talking about people out there in corporate America that it's their business to hire remote teams. And because I firmly believe that that is the new frontier of the American dream. And more importantly, I want to talk to you, do it all dads, that let's say work in finance or healthcare or IT, uh, some professions that I just mentioned that do allow you to work from a remote basis where you can get actual work done. I want to talk to you. The reason why I want to talk to you on this podcast is because it's very simple. I want to talk to you so we can discuss why our kids revere us so much more than other dads. Yeah. And the reason why, and it's no fault of the dads, and you got to make a living, but the big thing is for stay-at-home dads, you always hear, well, you're just a stay-at-home dad because you're an unemployed loser and you don't have any other choice in the matter. And now, obviously, that does apply to certain dads. As far as like age discrimination, you got like the gap years, and you could definitely feel that way. But you could also, look at it half full and say, well, this is an opportunity to dig deep and do what I really want to do. Like my daughter said last night, we were talking about hobbies. I'm reading comics these days. And she goes, talking about hobbies. And my daughter loves to draw. And I said, well, you can say daddy's hobby is comedy. I mean, I haven't been paid for it all that much outside of when I got, paid to write for a couple of video scripts for VH1 and VH1 Classic. And my daughter says, you're my favorite hobby, Daddy. So that was wonderful. And you kids are my favorite hobby. And we just need to start our own YouTube channel already for the Do It All Dad Year podcast. And we need to entertain other kids and other dads and not just listen to this podcast. And you guys obviously have more star power than me. So I think as far as I'm concerned, I have no problem exploiting your talent and gorgeous beauty for all it's worth. And why should Michael Lohan have all the fun? This is Do It All Dad Year podcast. Dad-friendly entertainment for you and me. controlling our kids through comedy can make our kids great again. Talk to you soon.